here this evening, and it was requested at the public safety meeting that we had last Friday morning. And as I articulated then, I think this is an important community decision. EMS service potentially affects everybody in the community that may need to call upon their services. It certainly impacts our professional services that work with them. It affects a broad range of people. And I certainly have no heartburn with hearing from the public. I think it's city ordinances that we typically have a requirement for a public hearing. So this is a bit unusual. It's not an ordinance per se. So we wouldn't necessarily have a public hearing. So I think if we want a public hearing on it, we'd have to vote in the affirmative to do that. So frankly, in favor of it. Don't know where everybody else is. I'll make a motion that a public hearing be scheduled at 6:15 on April 15th regarding the proposals received on ambulance service.
I'm saying it's not, because this is going to go on forever.
Should we do this on? I'll do 6. That gives us 45 minutes. I wish you would do it on the lot.
Just my understanding, on April 15th, there'll be a discussion item on the agenda. The council has given no clear direction on how to proceed. So my understanding, talking to the Public Safety Committee, they were really putting on the agenda this panel's recommendation, as well as all discussion for all 3 proposals. There's no clear recommendation from the Public Safety Committee. It wasn't a city manager committee or panel. It was a staff with city council. The panel was endorsed by both the Public Safety Committee and I would respectfully suggest the council bought into the process. We had a process. There's a recommendation in front of you, but there's no clear indication on where we're going. So there'll still be another meeting where after the 15th, hopefully there'll be some discussion on whether there'll be more interviews, whether there'll be a resolution to sign a contract or a negotiated contract. Help me out, councilors. Did that help at all, or did that confuse the issue?
Yeah. Frankly, I don't know when you'd want to have the public hearing. I'm merely saying I think the public hearing makes sense, and I'd rather hear about it before we discuss it further than after. So I think before the next meeting, if we're going to have a discussion item, which is where public safety wants it to be, I think it makes sense then, not after the fact. But.
I'm not sure I favor this public hearing idea, because I don't know that we're going to get any new information. But I will say that personally, as a counselor, I'm very disappointed in the process. Very, very disappointed in the process. I think given well, I know that the city manager said this isn't about one person, but he doth protest too much during the panel presentation. I think that there were relationships, and it brings the whole process under question. I think we, as a council, would have been better off. Hindsight's 20/20, but I think we would have been better off if we had the mayor perhaps appoint a special committee to review, and just because of relationships that exist. Let's not pretend they don't exist. They do. I'm just disappointed in the process. I don't think it was as objective as it could have been. But on the other hand, I'm not in favor of a public hearing and continuing this harangue on everybody's, or many people's, disappointment about what choice came up. But I just think this might be a lesson learned in the future, that when we are talking about a company and bidding, and there are clear relationships, very clear, visible relationships between the parties in question and the people trying to make a decision and be objective. I think it was important. If it were a jury, the panel would have been thrown out. They wouldn't have made it to the jury. But on the other hand, I don't think there's anything to be served by more public hearing. I'm not in favor of public hearing.
I'm not in favor of a public hearing either, and I'll tell you the reason why. I served 32 years in the fire department. I worked closely with Benoit's, Chalk, AMR. So, you know, people say, and I work a real good relationship with the fire department, hopefully for being there for 32 years. It has been, all the time that I've been on the fire department, I've listened to my personnel that I'm in charge of, to firefighters complaining about whatever ambulance service is there, because they want to have ambulance service in the fire department. So we're fighting that criteria. I've gone to ambulance calls with whatever vendor that is there, and sometimes have a problem with the personnel there, simply because they feel that we're trying to get their job away or whatever. And sometimes it works beautifully. I've been to a car accident where we've done extrications on Blackwater Road and High Street, and I had a person from Massachusetts watch the whole thing and come out and say, man, if I have an accident, I hope it's in the city of Somersworth because you guys are outstanding. And that's what I want to see. I want to see what's good for the public, all right? I have got things about AMR, I have got things about American Ambulance, I have got things from the fire department. What bothers me the most is when I turn around and read a letter from the fire service that says, oh, things have been running so smooth forever, I know better. Of course, I'm a politician, so I got to be the liar out of the deal, and that ain't the truth. But that's besides the point. I guess the bottom is, like I say, I have 3 articles here on AMR that communities are bailing out. I've had firefighters call me and tell me AMR's pulling out of Somersworth in a week. If you don't believe me, call Chief Plant, or go see Chief Plant. The next day I went to go see Chief Plant, he asked me what the heck I was talking about, but he heard the same rumors. So I have also had reports, and our committee has also had reports of problems that have happened in the medical field, all right? And I don't want to air that out here. I don't want to air it out in public. I hear someone say, well, that's a foreign country. I got informed that AMR comes from England. I don't know if that's foreign or not either, I guess, but that's what I've been told. Whether it's true it is or not, I don't know. I can dig in forever. The only thing I just don't want is, I want the best service for the city of Somersworth, for the citizens of Somersworth. And I get kind of teed off when people turn around and say, it's personal. Yeah, it's personal. My parents live here. They've used the ambulance. I've used the ambulance. My friends that I grew up with, which I'm a long life resident of Somersworth, live here. That's what I'm looking for. I served on the city fire department to serve the public to the best way that I can possibly can. That's what I'm looking at. I didn't care if it was AMR, Chalk, or whatever. All I want is what's best for the city. And I'm very, very insulted when someone turns around and says that I'm being prejudiced. And I guess that's all I got to say out of this. I guess, and that's the reason why is I don't want a public hearing, because I don't want it to turn into a mudslinging thing, and that's what I see this thing coming to. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing that there's no second, the motion is lost. With that, we'll move to closed comments by visitors. Once again, remember that you have 5 minutes unless rules are suspended by council. Please state your name and which ward you are in.
John Doyle, 1 Molly Lane, Ward 4. So cronyism wins again. It's really amazing. I have to wonder who is going to benefit, who and how a certain individual is going to benefit by the decision. Just wondering. But we'll see. Hopefully the city council will do the right thing and do the homework and do the research and evaluate based on the merits of all three companies. I think Councilor Soldati had it right. I think there should be more conversation. I think there should have been more of an open process instead of having the city manager and his staff and one city councilor make the determination as far as a recommendation. And yes, a recommendation was made by the committee, if I remember correctly. And I would entertain and invite each one of you city councilors to be very, very careful and studious and make sure that you do your research and your homework based on what is best for this community, for the people in this community. And I'm asking each one of you to do that. I don't think that, and thank you, Councilor Witham, for at least putting it on the floor to have a public hearing. I thought actually that the public's voice did matter, and it would have been nice if the public did have a chance to voice what they think. I'm just one person. I'm just speaking for myself, and my family. And yeah, I've used the ambulance services as well, but I think that things were not right in AMR for quite a while, till they got rid of some of the people that now you want to turn over the ambulance service to, Councilor, between you and I. So think that through, okay, and follow the cronyism. That's what you ought to do. And I'm really impressed with your stellar career. Thank you very much for your service to the community. But you got to cut the cord with the cronyism sometime. Just my opinion, whatever that's worth. But I know it's really not worth much on this bench. But please, City Council, do your job. And I know Mr. Belmore. I know that you're very good friends with one of them individuals. You actually go out to dinner with the individual and your wives together. You probably play golf with the guy. So you know, I would suggest that cronyism is continuing there. And you know, just follow the cronyism. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Doyle. Are there any other comments?
Rio Roseberry, Ward 1. I wasn't going to say anything, but Mr. Pippin, you're right. This would go on and on and on. I am tickled pink to see that we had 3 ambulance service to compete with. Now, you people should do what is right. One gentleman, he just left, okay? He's trying to make a name for himself, that's good. But AMR is a good outfit, don't get me wrong. They have Berwick, South Berwick, and they've got all around. Now, this new one is starting in Somersworth. My suggestion was that you allow a 2-year contract to whichever one you have, and let them show what they can show the city of Somersworth in 2 years. That would be the decent way of doing it. But you had a committee. I don't know who's on the committee, but to me, 2-year contract, and whoever you give it to, let the other ambulance service show that they can compete with them, and they will compete against them too. The third one is out, completely out. That's sensible. But sensible, 2-year contract, and then see who's the best. Whoever you award it to, I don't care who you award it to, but give the other one a chance to show. And going to court is ridiculous. Using a foreign ambulance, that's ridiculous. Let's use common sense. You people are hired to do common sense, show common sense. They're both good, don't get me wrong. They're both good. But use your common sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roseberry.
Emmett Soldati, Ward 1. It's been a very long meeting. I just briefly wanted to thank all the councillors for rolling along with the Hoyle and Tanner engineering projects for the downtown improvement. I think as Councillor Donahue raised, it was kind of confusing whether it was a vote or not, but I think there's still hopefully opportunities to change some things or go on with things like the painting the lines and so forth. But I'm very happy you have committed to something. We are moving forward, and I think ultimately the business community will sort of start to see how we can work together. So thank you for that, councillors.
Thank you, Emmett. Are there any further comments? Seeing none, we'll move to closing comments by councilors. Councilors,
Thank you, Ron. I'm going to be very brief. I know it's getting late. We all want to go home and have some supper if we haven't already. No, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to take this vote on the ambulance service very seriously. If we make a wrong decision on the amount of parking spaces in an area, we do. When you're talking about the ambulance service, we're talking about lives, potentially. And I can tell you that in '09, my mother passed away on a Sunday night and had an ambulance service at her house. And I just want to go on the merits of the companies. The people that matter are the citizens, the taxpayers. Whatever the best deal is for them, and I don't look at deal as in just dollars and cents. It's also, you have to look into the thickness of it and see the professionalism of what a company is going to offer you. If we went on just strictly on someone being a foreign entity, we would never use Pike Industries to pave. I mean, they're owned by Oldcastle. It's an Irish company. Ford is actually owned by some Irish entities too. Ford Motor Company. I think it's actually Oldcastle there too. So I look at both companies personally, and I see local dollars. If there's local people working there, the dollars will stay. Where the profits go, that's business. So I just want to be real brief on that. It really comes down to both have zero subsidies. I want to see the I think they call them ancillatory fees. Probably doing a yogi-ism on butchering that up, but I look at the ancillatory fees and say it's kind of like, hey, I can go down to Staples and buy a copier for $50, but the inkjets are going to get me. And that's where they make their money. So I look at the zero subsidy and say, hey, great, you have these, what other fees are included? And that's where I really want to get into the meat and bones, meat and potatoes of the deal. Because we're talking about life safety service here. And I've kind of seen the two proposals. I think one did stand out a little bit better than the other, and maybe credit upper management for putting together a better proposal. Hopefully I have faith that it would all come through. I know where I'm probably leaning towards right now, but I'm going to do some serious homework on this. And just that's our job as a counselor. That's all you can expect of us, and I think there's not one person up here that won't. And I really do lean on that committee. I mean, there's some expertise with two of them working in the fire. Marcel Hebert and Councilor Hebert, I know you do your homework. So I couldn't find a better committee that I'm going to lean on, just like people kind of lean on me with the road maintenance and those questions. So I don't think there's anything cronyism going on here personally, at least right now where I scratch the surface. So that's it.
thank you, Councilor Sprague. Councilor Little.
Thank you. On the same matter, and let's back up quite a few steps here to how we even got to where we are here tonight. There were some concerns identified in terms of response times. And in talking with the fire chief through the Public Safety Committee, one of the things that we identified as probably the leading contributor, if not the sole contributor to that, was the way that the current contract with AMR was structured, where the ambulance that was being utilized here in the city of Somersworth was also an ambulance that was being shared with the town of Berwick, Maine. And although that might have been a reliable, functional method to achieve EMS response some years ago, both communities have grown, and the demand for EMS service has certainly grown with that. In fact, the growth of EMS calls has probably outpaced the growth of the communities. We were coming up on an end of a contract with AMR at the end of this fiscal year, June 30th. And the Public Safety Committee felt that if we're going to improve our EMS response here in the city, one of the things that we needed to do was to have a dedicated ambulance provided to the city of Somersworth and not shared with a neighboring community. And that wasn't driven by cost. That wasn't driven by whose label was on the side of the ambulance. It was driven by the fact that we wanted to provide a quality service to the residents of the city of Somersworth. A 40-minute response time when you're having chest pains is certainly not an acceptable performance. Why? Because we don't have a dedicated ambulance. We needed to retool the contract. To retool the contract, we said, let's go out for proposals, knowing that there are other players in the EMS market. And I know the city sent it out to at least half a dozen, if not more. There were 3 proposals that were received. They've been bantered about here this evening. The binders for each company were similar in thickness. There was a lot of reading material. There was a lot of details within them. And as one counselor, as I read through it, is it possible that I missed a detail here or there? You bet. Did I want to miss details? No. The details matter. But could I have missed something? Sure. So we had a committee also review those responses, a committee made up of city staff who, frankly, we pay very, very well to make important decisions for us. And that committee met, reviewed the RFPs, and more importantly, brought in the companies to answer some of the questions that may have not been answered through the written proposals. And furthermore, was asked clarifying questions that even leveraged our ability through the RFP process to get even more out of that than perhaps we even envisioned going into the process. So fast forward to the Public Safety Committee meeting this past Friday, where 3 members asked more questions of city staff, and some were asked of a couple of the providers that were in attendance at the meeting. And based upon what we thought was the information in front of us, we made an informed decision based upon what we believed were accurate facts that were in front of us. Could there have been a panel that was, I don't know, more independent? I suppose that is true on any matter that we vote on here in the city of Somersworth. Whether it's a road paving project, heck, I voted on the High Street delamination repair. My mother lives on that road. Perhaps I should recuse myself from that. Councilor Soldati's office is in the downtown improvement area. You know, I think we're a small place, and we can find connections no matter how we look at it. In fact, I opened the public safety meeting saying that Mr. Obitis is my neighbor. It has been for, I don't know, I'm guessing 15 years. He built after me, but I think 15 years. Do we see each other? Sure. When I'm mowing my grass, or I'm cleaning my driveway of snow, we see each other, casual conversation. How's your daughter doing? She's off to college, that sort of thing. I've never had dinner at his house. He's never had dinner at my house. I've never played golf with him. You know, I've just not been in that mode. And I looked very closely at the city charter, because if there was a way to recuse myself from that, I would have, because I knew it was going to be raised as sort of the gremlin in the room. But according to the city charter, there was no way that I could recuse myself from that situation. People voted for me to do this job. I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. If they don't think I've done it well, I guess this November will be an opportunity to change that course of action. When I looked at the proposals, there were similarities, pros and cons with all of them. You want the cheapest transport rate? That was Care Plus. At the end of the day, the subsidy scared me. But I'll tell you, for some elderly residents with poor insurance, with no insurance, Care Plus might be the appealing option, quite frankly. And we worry about the ability of them to deliver service. I think we have some safeguards in place there. All EMS providers in the state of New Hampshire are licensed to their appropriate level. They are certified, so they're paramedics, they're EMTIs, they're EMTBs, they're certified, they're licensed. And the agencies, for that matter, are, some are accredited. The ambulances themselves, I believe, are checked to make sure they carry basic equipment to the level of service that they provide. And those are checked by Bureau of EMS out of Concord. So there are various levels of safeguards so that I know no matter who we put on the street, there's going to be some basic level of certainty in terms of what we're going to get provided for service. You weigh the other details, the transport costs, their ability to train firefighters, all these other things. The committee made an informed decision. Is it a decision that rests easily with everybody? No. Just like tonight's decision on the roads. There's always going to be pros and cons to decisions. You make it using the best judgment that you can, and that's what we did. So, wasn't planning on speaking about this tonight, but the opportunity arose. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Witham. City Manager. There's another city councilor, but,
I was gonna ask for your indulgence, just, accusations and to clear the air. My wife and AMR's, this gentleman who lives in town, his wife have never gone out to dinner, we don't play golf. In fact, the only relationship we had other than sitting on boards was developed through chamber events, and going to chamber dinners and that sort of thing. And so I suspect, just as with waste management, we have signed contracts with waste management, and they're asked to give back to the community. So as we sign on to these companies, we're asked for them to participate in community events, and hence we develop a relationship. There's nothing secretive or inordinate or improper on the way. That's the way business is done these days. So these companies join the chamber, they go to chamber events, and we socialize with them. So if we go with AMR, I told the committee, I will work with any of the companies, and I'm sure their staff and their management will develop a relationship with me and the fire department. We may see them at chamber events. So when we go out to bid again, I guess we got to sever those types of relationships. So it's a matter of how we do business with companies. We sign on to the city, and there's nothing devious or inappropriate about it. So, in my opinion, just my opinion. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I appreciate it.
you're welcome, City Manager. Councilor Sedati.
For the record, for the number of years I've known Paul Robidas, he is not a golfer, okay? He doesn't even try. But he has volunteered at our golf tournaments.
Councilor Pepper.
Yes. After last Friday's meeting that we had, I haven't hardly been able to sleep since, simply because of the allegations of certain individual that spoke tonight. And I guess what concerns me the most out of this deal is that I try to serve the people in the best way I can, and I know he's gonna take this for a loop, okay? Mr. Roseberry calls me constantly. We have constant conversations on the phone. He stopped at my house. We have conversations here out on the street after we get done the meeting. We don't always agree. But one thing I can say about Mr. Roseberry, he sticks around after a meeting so we can discuss things, so we don't have to mudsling things out or make certain comments. I will welcome the opportunity to speak to anybody that wants to come and speak in a civil manner, and don't put it so sarcastically. I mean, I'm a public servant, and I try to serve the people the best I can, and I try to treat them with respect. But unfortunately, just because I'm an elected official doesn't mean I should be, or anybody else up here should be treated without being with the same manner. I will sit down with anybody. I will sit down with the gentleman that just left. I don't have the opportunity outside of probably chasing him down in his home or whatever, but he doesn't stay here. He makes his little comments where he's televised, and then he runs out, so he doesn't have any conversation afterwards. I will sit down, and there's things that I would like to say to him, things that have been brought up to me, things that I've seen, so he could probably look into it. But I don't want to go mudslinging. I don't want to try to say, well, this is what I see, this is what's been reported to me, this is whatever, because it's going to look bad on somebody else. And some of it may be true, some of it may not be true. That's the reason why I hold off on it. But anytime anyone out there wants to sit down and talk, civilly wise, and I hope I do the same thing, to them, at least I will try. And if there is a miscommunication, I will try to solve it. But that's what bothers me out of this whole scenario, is just because, and that's probably the reason why people don't want to serve on certain boards or serve as a city council member, because they don't want to be abused that way. And that's verbal abuse as far as I'm concerned. And that gentleman ought to know better, because he represents the Democratic Party, he represents multi-unions, so he ought to be a little concerned on the way he speaks. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Pascal. Are there any other counselors who wish to make closing comments? Seeing none, we'll go on to future agenda items. Seeing none, no non-public session. I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
We've got to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Been a motion and seconded to